In the depths of a foreboding wilderness, shrouded in a perpetual twilight, there stood a cabin that time had forgotten. It was nestled amidst gnarled trees, their twisted branches clawing at the sky like the skeletal figures of some ancient god. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves, a blend that mingled with the distant echoes of a long forgotten harvest. This was not merely a structure of wooden nails, it was a monument to despair, a shrine to the sins of those who once sought refuge within its walls. The legend of the cabin had faded into obscurity, whispered among the few souls brave enough to traverse the winding trails of the surrounding forests. They spoke of its allure, the siren's call to the weary and the lost. It promised warmth and sustenance, a respite from the cruel hands of nature, yet beneath its seemingly inviting exterior laid a darkness that had claimed many, ensnaring them in a web of insatiable hunger and despair. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that danced upon the forest floor. A chill crept through the trees, as if the very land exhaled a sigh of foreboding. It was on the eve of Thanksgiving that a group of friends seeking adventure had a break from their mundane and a break from their mundane lives stumbled upon the cabin. They were drawn to it, perhaps unwittingly, by a magnetic pull of curiosity. Among them was Clara, a vibrant spirit with laughter that echoed like the chime of distant bells. Her eyes sparkled with the mischief of the young and the reckless. Beside her was Marcus, the self-appointed leader of their little expedition, whose bravado masked an undercurrent of doubt. Then there was Lydia, quiet and introspective, forever lost in the pages of her books. And finally there was Ben, the ever optimistic jokester, whose antics kept the group's spirits high. As they approached the cabin, the air thickened with anticipation. The structure loomed before them, a grotesque caricature of warmth. Its windows, clouded with dust and grime, seemed to watch them with a knowing gaze. The door creaked open, as if inviting them into its dark embrace. Clara was the first to step inside, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and trepidation. The interior was dimly lit. Shadows shifted like phantoms in the corners. A massive fireplace dominated on one wall, its hearth filled with ashes long cold. The furniture, though worn and faded, hinted at a bygone era, a time when laughter had filled these walls, and the cabin had been a sanctuary rather than a prison. Clara brushed her fingers along the wooded table, feeling the grooves worn by time, and shivered at the thought of the stories it could tell. "Well, what do you think?" Marcus asked, breaking the oppressive silence. His voice echoed eerily in the stillness. "It's quaint," Lydia replied. Her gaze drifted to the ceiling, where cobwebs hung like forgotten dreams. "A bit too quiet, perhaps?" Ben chuckled. "Perfect for a Thanksgiving getaway. We'll have stories to tell for years." As they settled in, the group began to unpack their supplies. The scent of roasted turkey wafted through the cabin as Clara prepared their meal. Laughter filled the air, drowning out the encroaching darkness that lay just behind the window. Yet, as night fell, an unsettling tension began to weave its way into the revelry. "I think I heard something," Lydia said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Probably just a raccoon," Marcus scoffed, though he cast a weary glance at the window. The shadows outside loomed larger, twisting into shapes that danced on the edge of perception. Despite their attempts to shake off the unease, the atmosphere grew thick with an unshakable dread. The wind howled outside, rattling the shutters and causing the fire to flicker ominously. Clara served the turkey. Its succulent aroma filled the room, but the food sat heavily on their stomachs, as if tainted by some unseen force. "Let me make a toast," Ben suggested, raising his cup, "to friendship, adventure, and the best Thanksgiving ever." They echoed his sentiments, their voices mingling with the crackling of the fire. Yet even as they celebrated, the feeling that they were not alone grew stronger, an unseen presence watching from the shadows. As the evening wore on, Clara felt an overwhelming urge to explore the cabin further. She excused herself from the table and ventured into a back room. The air was cooler here, tingled with the scent of mildew and something else, something ancient and forgotten. The walls were lined with dusty shelves filled with faded photographs and peculiar trinkets. One photo caught her eye, a portrait of a family gathered around a Thanksgiving feast, their faces twisted into smiles that seemed to conceal hidden sorrows. Suddenly she heard a soft giggle echoes through the room, sending a chill down her spine. Clara turned sharply, but there was no one there. The laughter faded into the walls, leaving behind an unsettling silence. Heart racing, she hurried back to the main room, where her friends were engaged in animated conversation. "Did you find anything interesting?" Marcus asked, arching his eyebrow. "Just some old photos," Clara replied, trying to brush off her unease. Yet she could not shake the feeling that something was wrong, that the cabin itself was alive, a sentient being waiting for the right moment to reveal its true nature. As the night deepened, the group decided to share ghost stories, an effort to inject some levity into the oppressive atmosphere. Each tale spun a web of horror, but with every laugh, Clara felt the weight of the cabin pressing down on her, suffocating her spirit. The wind outside howled like a wounded beast, and the shadows in the corners seemed to stretch and grow, as if reaching out for them. Then Lydia, with a faraway look in her eyes, began to recount a legend she had read about the legend of the spirit that roamed the earth during Thanksgiving, feasting on the souls of the unwary. It was said that those who dared to gather and celebrate would attract the attention of this insatiable entity, drawing it closer with their laughter and joy. "That is just a story," Marcus interjected, though his voice trembled slightly. "It's not real." "Is it?" Lydia countered, her gaze piercing. "What if the stories are rooted in truth? What if we are here to awaken something that has lain dormant for centuries?" As if in response to her words, the ground beneath them trembled ever so slightly, a shudder that rattled the very foundation of the cabin. The fire flickered violently, casting eerie shadows that danced upon the walls. Clara's heart raced, and she exchanged worried glances with her friends. "Let's go outside," Ben suggested, desperate to escape the oppressive atmosphere. "We can see if we can spot any wildlife or maybe even the stars." Reluctantly, the group stepped into the night, the cold air biting at their skin, the moon hanging high above, casting an ethereal glow upon the landscape. The forest loomed around them, a dark sea of trees whispering secrets in the wind. They stood in a loose circle, sharing nervous laughter, but Clara couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. As they ventured deeper into the woods, they found a clearing where the ground was littered with fallen leaves and the remnants of autumn. Clara knelt to examine the earth, her fingers brushing against something cold and hard, a bone, ancient and withered. Panic surged within her, and she quickly rose, heart pounding. "Guys, we should go back," she urged. "This place feels wrong." "Come on, don't be such a buzzkill," Marcus laughed, though his bravado wavered. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream shattered the night. It was Lydia. The group turned to her, standing frozen, her face pale as a sheet. Clara rushed to her side, gripping her arm. "What is it?" Clara asked, her voice trembling. "Did you see it?" Lydia gasped, pointing into the darkness. "There was something there, something watching us." Marcus laughed nervously, trying to dismiss the tension. "It's just your imagination. Let's go to the cabin," and before he could finish, the shadow shifted, coalescing into a form that seemed to rise from the very earth itself. The group stood frozen in terror as the figure emerged, a grotesque amalgamation of limbs and eyes, a creature born of nightmares. Its skin was mottled and decayed, a representation of all that was lost and forgotten. "Run!" Kara screamed, breaking the spell that held them captive. They sprinted back towards the cabin, the sound of footsteps pounding against the ground echoing behind them, a relentless pursuit that sent terror surging through their veins. They burst through the cabin door, slamming it shut behind them. Breaths came in ragged gasps as they leaned against the door, the pounding outside growing louder. The very walls seemed to tremble, as if the cabin itself were aware of the terror that had come to claim them. "What was that thing?" Ben asked, his voice quivering. "I don't know," Lydia cried, tears streaming down her face, "but it's not safe here." The cabin trembled again, and the lights flickered ominously. In the dim glow, Clara could see the reflection of the glass, a pair of eyes watching them from the window, gleaming with a hunger that sent chills down her spine. "Get away from the window," Marcus shouted, but it was too late. The door shuddered violently as the creature pressed against it, and the walls groaned under the weight of its presence. They backed away, desperately searching for an escape route. The fireplace flickered, illuminating the room with a flickering glow that twisted the shadows into grotesque shapes. The air grew heavy with the rancid odor and stench of decay and despair. "Why did we come here?" Clara wailed, her voice laced with desperation. As if in answer, the wall of the cabin seemed to pulse, throbbing like a living entity. The shadows writhed, and from the corner of her eye, Clara caught a glimpse of a movement, a dark figure slinking through the darkness, merging with the very wood of With a sudden and deafening crash, the door splintered, and the creature lunged forward, its grotesque maw stretching wide to reveal a gaping chasm filled with razor-sharp teeth. Clara barely had time to scream before the creature enveloped Marcus, dragging him into the void. "No! Marcus!" Lydia screeched, lunging towards the door, but Ben held her back, horror etched across his face. Clara felt a surge of primal fear. Her instincts screamed for survival. We have to get out of here," she yelled, grabbing Lydia's hand and pulling her towards the back of the cabin. They stumbled into a small bedroom, the shadows gathering like a storm cloud. Clara's mind raced, searching for a way out. "There has to be a window, something." In the corner, a window was partially boarded up, but there was enough room for them to squeeze through. They hurried toward it, pushing aside the rotting boards as the sound of chaos erupted in the main room. Ben glanced back, terror washing over him as the creature began to consume everything in its path. "Go," Clara shouted, urging Lydia through the narrow opening. "I'll follow." As Lydia scrambled out into the night, Clara heard the unmistakable sound of bones crackling and flesh tearing, the echo of their friends' screams merging with the cacophony of chaos. With a final push, Clara forced herself through the window, pain slicing through her as the jagged edges tore at her skin. The night air enveloped her, but the moment of freedom was short-lived. The creature was already on their trail, its growls reverberating through the darkness. Its growls reverberating through the darkness. They sprinted into the woods, branches clawing at their faces and shadows closing in around them. "Where do we go?" Lydia grasped, her breath coming in ragged gasps. "We have to keep moving," Clara urged, her heart pounding as the sounds of the creature grew nearer. They ran through the forest, disoriented, stumbling over roots and fallen branches. The moon hung high, casting an eerie light on their path, but it did little to alleviate the dread that clung to them. Suddenly, Lydia stumbled, falling to the ground. Clara turned back, fear clawing at her throat. "Lydia, get up!" "I can't," Lydia cried, clutching her ankle, a pained expression twisting her face. "I think I hurt myself." "Leave me, just go," Lydia shouted desperately, lacing her voice. "No, I won't leave you," Clara cried, rushing to her side. But the sound of the creature was closing in, and Clara could feel the ground vibrating beneath her feet. "We have to move now." With every ounce of strength, Clara helped Lydia to her feet, supporting her as they stumbled deeper into the woods. The creature's growl echoed around them, the very air thick with the malevolence. Time lost all meaning as they plunged deeper into the dark wilderness. The trees twisted and turned, forming a labyrinth of shadows that threatened to consume them whole. Clara's lungs burned, but she pressed on, the fear of the creature driving her forward. Finally, they burst into a clearing, a wide open space illuminated by the moon's pale light. In the center lay a well, its stone walls slick with moss and decay. "We can hide in there," Clara urged, pointing to the opening. Lydia nodded. Desperation ignited her spirit, and together they hurried to the well, climbing down into its depths. The darkness enveloped them, a shroud of silence that offered a fleeting sense of safety. They huddled together at the bottom, their breath echoing in the confined space. Minutes turned to hours as they waited in the suffocating darkness, the sounds of the creature fading into the distance. The fear that had gripped Clara began to shift into a suffocating anxiety and the reality of their situation weighing heavily upon her. "Do you think it's gone?" Lydia whispered, her voice trembling. "I don't know," Clara replied, fighting to keep her own fear at bay. "But we can't stay here forever." Suddenly, the sound above them trembled, and Clara felt a chill seep into her bones. The sound of a scratching echoed from above, a persistent tapping that sent shivers down their spines. They exchanged terrifying glances, a silent understanding passing between them. "It's coming back," Lydia breathed, her eyes wide with fear. Clara clutched Lydia's hand tightly, her heart racing. "We have to find a way out, now." Summoning every ounce of courage, Clara climbed up the sides of the well, her fingers searching for a grip. The scratching above intensified, a cacophony that reverberated through the air. With one final heave, she reached the top and pushed aside the remnants of the stones that had sealed them in. As Clara emerged into the night, she gasped in horror. The creature loomed before her, its grotesque form silhouetted against the moonlight, its eyes glowing with an insatiable hunger, and the air thickening with the stench of decay. "Clara!" Lydia cried from below, panic rising in her voice. "Stay back!" Clara shouted, but there was no time. The creature lunged forward, its maw opening wide to consume her. In a moment of instinctual desperation, Clara grabbed a nearby branch and swung it with all her might, connecting with the creature's face. It recoiled, a piercing shriek echoing through the night, and Clara seized the opportunity to dive back down into the well. "Clara," Lydia cried, fear palpable in her voice. "We have to find another way out," Clara gasped breathlessly. They searched frantically in the darkness, but the walls offered no solace. The scratching above grew louder, a promise of inevitable doom, With every passing moment, Clara could feel the creature's rage rising, an insatiable desire to claim what was rightfully its. As despair washed over them, Clara's mind raced. The legend Lydia had spoken of echoed in her thoughts, the spirit that feasted upon the souls of the weary. They were not merely victims, they were offerings drawn to the cabin by the spirit's insidious call. "We have to break the cycle," Clara shouted, her voice filled with newfound determination. Lydia nodded, her eyes glimmering with resolve. "But how?" "We have to confront it. We have to show it that we are not afraid." As if sensing their determination, the creature unleashed a howl of fury that reverberated through the earth. Clara stilled herself, grasping Lydia's hand tightly. "We need to face it together." Climbing back up, they emerged once more into the moonlit night, the creature waiting hungrily for them. Clara could feel the pulse of the earth beneath her feet, the very land resonating with the spirit's dark hunger. "Show yourself," Clara shouted, her voice ringing with defiance. "We are not your offerings." The creature paused, its grotesque figure twisted in confusion. Clara stepped forward, her heart racing, but she refused to back down. "Now you will not claim us." In that moment, a change began to unfold. The ground trembled and the air thickened with an ancient power, as if essence of the earth responded to their declaration. The creature howled in rage, the sound piercing the night as it thrashed against the unseen forces that bound it. "Clara, what are you doing?" Lydia cried, fear lacing her voice. "Trust me," Clara shouted, feeling the energy surge through her. "We can break the curse." With every ounce of strength, Clara focused her thoughts, channeling her fear into a powerful declaration. "We are not afraid of you. We are not your prey." The creature's movement slowed, confusion washing over its twisted form. It hesitated. The shadows around it flickered as if caught in a tempest. In the moment of vulnerability, Clara felt a surge of hope. "Remember the love of family and friends," Clara called out, her voice rising above the din. "You do not have to be a monster." As she spoke those words, the air crackled with energy. The creature seemed to waver, its form blurring at the edges as if caught between realms. Clara reached out, feeling the warmth of friendship and love envelop her. In a final surge of determination, Clara stepped forward, her heart pounding as she extended her hand towards the creature. "You can be free. You do not have to be bound by this hunger." With a piercing scream, the creature lunged forward, but instead of attacking, it collided with Clara's outstretched hand. A blinding light erupted from the point of contact, enveloping them both in a radiant glow. Time ceased to exist as Clara felt herself being pulled into a whirlwind of energy. Her very essence merged with the spirit of the creature. Memories flooded her mind. Pain, suffering, but also love, hope, and the yearning for freedom. In that instant, Clara understood they were not so different. The creature had once been a being of light, twisted into a monster by its own despair and hunger. As the light enveloped her, Clara felt the chains of fear shatter, replaced by an overwhelming sense of compassion. The creature's form began to dissolve. The shadows receded as it transformed before her eyes. When the light faded, Clara found herself standing in the clearing, Lydia beside her, the creature nowhere to be seen. The air was still, and the sense of peace settled over the woods. "We did it," Lydia whispered. Disbelief etched on her face. Clara nodded, a mixture of exhaustion and relief washing over her. They had broken the cycle, confronting not only the creature, but their own fears. As they turned to leave the clearing, Clara looked back at one last time, a soft smile spreading across her lips. The spirit of the woods whispering its gratitude, a gentle reminder that even in darkness there could be light. In the little town of Cedar Hollow, Thanksgiving was a big deal. Families gathered, sharing laughter and love over heaping plates of turkey, mashed potatoes. But for Jamie and Mark, it was their first Thanksgiving as a married couple, and they wanted to impress their families with a perfect dinner. Little did they know they were about to step into a culinary nightmare. "All right, let's get this turkey," Jamie said, excitement glimmering in his eyes as they pulled into Old Man Thomas's farm. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the dilapidated barn and fields. Mark glanced at the faded sign that read, "Thompson's Free-Range Turkeys." As they walked towards the barn, a gust of wind rattled the creaky wood, and Mark shivered. "Are you sure this is the right place?" he asked, eyeing the ominous clouds forming above. "Absolutely. I heard his turkeys are the best in the county," Jamie replied, determination in her voice. "Besides, it's an adventure." They stepped inside the barn, greeted by the unsettling sound of clucking and flapping. Rows of plump turkeys clucked in unison, their beady eyes watching the newcomers. Mark chuckled nervously. I think they're judging us. Shush, it's just a turkey, Jamie said, walking toward a particularly large specimen with shiny feathers. It puffed up its chest as if to say, I'm the one you want. Old Man Thomas emerged from the shadows, his face weathered and lined with a twinkle of mischief in his eyes. Ah, I see you found my finest bird, he choked, a toothless grin splitting his face. But be warned, it's not just any turkey, it's a special turkey. Jamie and Mark exchanged glances. Special? How? Mark asked, his curiosity piqued. The last family that cooked this turkey, let's just say they didn't make it to Thanksgiving dinner. Thompson replied, chuckling darkly. This bird is cursed. If you don't respect the feast, it will haunt you. Mark laughed awkwardly, shaking his head. Come on, it's just a turkey. Thompson leaned closer, his voice drooped to a whisper. You mock the curse, but the curse doesn't mock you. Treat it well, and it will be your greatest feast. Anger it, and you'll regret it. Okay, we'll take our chances, Jamie said, rolling her eyes playfully. We'll treat it like royalty. With that, they purchased the turkey, unaware of the fate awaiting them. Back at their cozy little house, Jamie and Mark prepared for the big day. The kitchen was filled with the intoxicating aroma of herbs and spices as they seasoned the turkey, humming along to festive music. This is going to be the best Thanksgiving ever, Jamie exclaimed, stuffing the bird with homemade stuffing. Mark set up the dining table, his mind racing with images of compliments from family. They're going to love us. But as the turkey cooked, a strange series of events began to unfold. The lights flickered ominously. Shadows danced on the walls, and a low, gruntle growl echoed from the kitchen. Did you hear that? Mark asked, his heart racing. It's just the turkey, Jamie replied, laughing nervously. You're being ridiculous. Suddenly, the oven door swung open, slamming against a wall, revealing the turkey, now a vibrant shade of crimson, its eyes gleaming with an outworldly light. A sinister smile seemed to stretch across its beak, and the room grew icy cold. Jamie, I think the turkey is alive, Mark stammered, backing away slowly. Don't be silly, Jamie shouted through her, though her voice trembled. It's just an old oven, and we've had too much wine. With a flick of its wings, the turkey launched itself from the roasting pan, landing on the kitchen floor with a loud thud. It waddled towards Mark, feathers bristling, the sound of its footsteps echoing like a drum. Mark grabbed a spatula, holding it up defensively. Stay back, you cursed bird. The turkey hissed, revealing sharp, glistening teeth. It lunged at him, and Mark swung the spatula widely. The kitchen erupted into chaos as Jamie screamed, trying to capture the rogue turkey. What do we do? She shouted, her eyes wide with terror. Run! Mark yelled, bolting out of the kitchen, the turkey hot on his heels. The couple dashed through the house, the crazed turkey chasing him like a feathered demon. They skidded into the living room, where Jamie grabbed a broom, brandishing it like a weapon. Get back, you foolish beast, she yelled, swinging at the turkey, which deftly dodged, squawking in anger. The turkey retaliated, pecking at Mark's leg. Ow, it hurts, he yelled, jumping up and down. Get the door, Jamie screamed, still swinging the broom. We need to get it outside. Mark scrambled for the front door while Jamie tried to corral the turkey towards it. As they pushed through, the turkey made a final furious lunge, knocking Jamie's broom out of her hand. Get out of my house, you monster, Jamie shouted, finally shoving the turkey outside. It flapped its wings in frustration, screeching like a banshee. Panting heavily, Mark slammed the door shut and leaned against it, trying to catch his breath. What just happened? Jamie pressed her forehead against the cool wood of the door, still shaken. I don't know, but that turkey is definitely cursed. They stared at each other, the reality of their situation sinking in. What do we do now? Mark asked. I think we need to call someone, Jamie said, pulling out her phone. As she dialed, the turkey began to peck at the door. Relentless in its pursuit, it squawked angrily, flapping its wings against the wood. Please pick up, Jamie urged as the phone rang. Hello? A voice crackled through the line. Hi, we have a bit of a situation, Jamie stammered, glancing nervously at the door. What kind of situation? The voice replied skeptical. A possessed turkey is trying to break into our house, she said, feeling ridiculous. The line went silent for a moment before the voice on the other end burst into laughter. Sure, right. Sounds like a Thanksgiving prank. No, I'm serious. This turkey is cursed, Jamie pleaded. Lady, you had too much wine. Have a good Thanksgiving, the voice said before hanging up. Great, just great, Jamie muttered, tossing her phone aside. No one believes us. Mark stepped away from the door, a newfound determination in his eyes. We need to end this. We can't let it ruin Thanksgiving. Jamie nodded, and they made their way to the kitchen to strategize. We need a plan. Armed with a frying pan and a determined spirit, Jamie and Mark steeled themselves for battle. They opened the door to the backyard where the turkey was waiting, its eyes glinting with malice. Okay, on three, Mark whispered. 1, 2, 3. They charged out, but the turkey was quicker. It launched itself at them, flapping wildly. Then Mark swung the frying pan, barely missing. Damn it! It knows our moves. Damn it! It's like it knows our moves. Jamie shouted. Just aim for its head, Mark yelled, swinging the pan again. This time he connected, but the turkey merely shook it off, unfazed. The turkey let out a terrifying squawk and lunged at Jamie, who barely dodged. This isn't working. We need a new plan. Just then a loud honk echoed from the side of the house. It was their neighbor, Mr. Jenkins, the old farmer known for his gruff demeanor and stubbornness. Hey, what in tarnation is going on over there? He shouted, approaching them with his shotgun in hand. We have a cursed turkey that's trying to kill us, Jamie exclaimed, waving her arms. Mr. Jenkins raised an eyebrow. Cursed, huh? You kids and your nonsense. Then as he stepped closer, the turkey turned in its attention to him, squawking angrily. See, it's real, Mark shouted, pointing at the furious bird. Before Jenkins could react, the turkey charged at him, flapping its wings and pecking at its boots. What the? He fired a warning shot into the air, startling the turkey momentarily. Help us, Jamie pleaded. With a reluctant sigh, Mr. Jenkins took aim. All right, let's see what this cursed turkey is made of. He fired, but instead of a solid hit, the bullet ricocheted off a tree, and the turkey merely seemed to laugh, its beady eyes glimmering with dark amusement. "Are you kidding me?" Mark exclaimed, watching the bird dance around them. "This thing is invincible." "Let's trap it," Jamie shouted. "We need to use its own weight against it." They quickly devised a plan, setting up a makeshift trap using the old barn door. With Jenkins providing cover, they lured the turkey towards the door. As it charged, they pulled the door down, slamming it shut just in time. But the turkey was relentless. It battered against the wood, cawing and screeching, trying to break free. "Keep it down," Jenkins yelled, looking unnerved. "This thing is more than a turkey." Mark and Jamie exchanged nervous glances, realizing the gravity of their situation. What do we do now?" Jamie asked, biting her lip. "Get some rope," Jenkins ordered. "We need to bind it before it breaks loose." They scrambled to find more rope in the barn, their hearts racing. Mark returned, tying the turkey's wings tightly. Just as they felt a moment of triumph, the turkey let out a spine-chilling screech. It was then they noticed the dark mist rising around the ground, swirling ominously around the bird. The turkey's eyes glowed, and it let out a growl that rattled the very air around them. "Oh no," Jamie gasped. "It's summoning something." The mist thickened, swirling around the turkey like a spectral shroud. Shapes began to materialize in the fog-twisted shadow forms, the lost souls of previous Thanksgiving dinners, trapped and hungry. "Run," Jenkins yelled, shoving Jamie and Mark as they fled the barn. The turkey, now a harbinger of dark spirits, began to rise, its form becoming more monstrous as the shadows enveloped it. It hissed, and the spirits wailed, their ghostly faces contorted in agony. "What have we done?" Mark cried, glancing back at the horror they had unleashed. "We need to break the curse," Jamie shouted desperately in her voice. Thompson mentioned respect. "We need to honor it somehow." But how could they honor a bird that had come alive to destroy them? They recalled Old Man Thompson's warning, "Cook it with reverence." Mark yelled, piecing it together. "We need to prepare it as if it were a royal feast." Jenkins, still clutching his shotgun, nodded. "I've got spices in a pot in my truck. Let's make this happen." With a newfound urgency, they rushed back into the house. They gathered ingredients, tossing herbs and spices into a large pot, hoping to appease the malevolent spirit of the turkey. As they prepared, the turkey's furious squawking echoed outside, the spirits swirling menacingly around the house. The air grew thick with tension, and the lights flickered ominously. "Quick, we need to cook it now," Jamie urged, pouring the mixture into a large pot over a fire in the backyard. "Quick, we need to cook it now," Jamie urged, pouring the mixture into a large pot over a fire in the backyard. They placed the turkey in the pot, chanting the words Thompson had mentioned, trying to summon the spirit of the feast. As they did, the turkey screeched and the spirits howled in anger, but Jamie and Mark pressed on, mixing their concoction with fervor. "Please, great spirit of the feast, we honor you," Mark shouted, his voice carrying over the chaos. Suddenly the wind picked up, howling around them, and the dark mist began to recede. The turkey's monstrous form shrank, returning to its original size. now just a regular turkey once more. With a final screech, the spirits dissipated, leaving the air eerily still. Mark and Jamie collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath. "I think we did it," Jamie whispered, her eyes wide with disbelief. As the sun set, the skies cleared and the dark clouds faded away, leaving a serene view of Cedar Hollow. A couple stared at the now normal turkey, their hearts racing. "I can't believe we survived that," Mark said, shaking his head in disbelief. They carefully prepared the turkey for dinner, cooking it with love and respect. As the aroma filled the air, they set the table, inviting Mr. Jenkins to join them for their Thanksgiving feast. When their families arrived, they marveled at the spread, unaware of the horror that had unfolded earlier. Jamie and Mark shared a knowing glance, a silent agreement to keep the turkey's dark past a secret. As they sat down, everyone raised their glasses to toast the couple's first Thanksgiving together. Jamie couldn't help but feel a sense of triumph and relief. "Here's to love, family, and the best Thanksgiving ever," Jamie declared, smiling at everyone. As they dug into the turkey, Jamie noticed a glimmer of something in the corner of his eye, a shadow passing by the window. She shivered, but brushed it off as a trick of the light. After dinner, as laughter and chatter filled the air, Mark leaned closer to Jamie. "Do you think it's really over?" She smiled, though a flicker of doubt crossed her face. "I hope so, but maybe we should avoid turkeys from now on." Just as they relaxed, a loud thud echoed from the kitchen. The laughter stopped, and everyone looked towards the noise. "What was that?" Jamie asked, her heart racing again. Mark stood, a weary expression on his face. "I'll check it out." As he stepped into the kitchen, they all held their breath, and Jamie's pulse quickened. The turkey sat on the corner, innocently untouched, but something felt off. Suddenly the lights flickered and the ground trembled beneath them. Jamie felt a chill run down his spine, the air thick with tension. The door to the pantry creaked open, and a low growl resonated from within. Mark's eyes widened as he turned to the others. Guys?" From the shadows, another turkey emerged, this one more fearsome than the last, its eyes glowing with malevolence. The room went silent. Everyone froze in shock. With a fierce determination, Jamie stepped forward, raising her glass high. "We're ready for round 2. As the creature screeched, the laughter of their family turned into a cacophony of chaos, the promise of another Thanksgiving adventure brewing as the shadows